Hey you guys, welcome to the nation of eyeballs and antennas. This video will be full of traps just like yesterday's video, which has just popped up in the card above. You need to watch that video, you guys, after you finish watching this. So in today's video, we are still looking at ways in which you can deal with the bishop g4 and bishop g5 pins on your knights, or simply how to punish your opponents when they rush to pin your knights either on f3 or f6. Alright, so this video is sponsored by no one, which is why we have to begin with pawn to e4. And after our opponent plays e5, we go knight f3. Wait a second. Knight c6 is the top played move in this position, defending the e5 pawn. But when you look into the Lichess database, even in the Masters database, at the time of this recording, pawn to d6, called the Felido defense, is the second top played move, which is also common at lower levels. What do I recommend here? Well, I just recommend you go pawn to d4 immediately. They'll play e takes d4, that's the top played move, after which you go knight takes d4. Now wait a second. They have been taught that whenever their opponent's piece is exposed with no defender on the center, they have to develop with tempo with moves such as pawn to c5, playing this in a Sicilian style. This is not a dubious move. They are just simply developing a pawn in a way of attacking their enemy's piece, which is not well placed in the center. Well, I suggest you just go back knight f3. And here you can turn on the Lichess database if you want. Knight c6 is the top played move, after which you go bishop c4. Again, look at the Lichess database, you guys. Bishop g4 is by far the top played move in the Lichess database, pinning your knight to the queen. So how do you punish this useless bishop pin? Well, you first of all relax and see what black is up to. You play knight c3, complete the development of your knights first, and trust me, you are going to see most of your opponents playing knight d4 or knight e5. For example, if knight e5, which attacks your undefended light squared bishop and putting more pressure on this pinned knight, what do I recommend here? Well, just give up your queen. There's too much pressure. And I was surprised to see that bishop takes d1 here is by far the top played move again. And this is where you can shake your opponent's eyeballs by taking on f7. That's check. The only move is king e7, after which knight d5 is checkmate. People don't listen and they will never. Anyways, once again, after pawn to e4, e5, you go knight f3, they play d6, and then d4. You always see them taking, by the way. After which you take back with your knight. This time you might not see them play pawn to c5. In fact, the top played move here is knight to f6. Let me show you how to respond against this, just in case. Well, I like this tricky move, bishop c4. If you are a keen follower of my videos, you already know what is about to happen here. If knight takes e4, black thinking he just took our free pawn, well, we have this move, bishop takes f7, making them lose their right to castle, because if they take back, well, we have queen h5 check, and after pawn to g6, that's when we take back that knight with tempo. We'll just develop our queen's knight. If they take, we'll take with tempo, and I like castling and start pawn storming on the king side to finish up the war as quickly as possible. But here, you guys, black is in big trouble. Anyways, so that's just one of the ways in which this game can go. But after you play bishop c4, let's say if they don't take on e4 and play something like pawn to c5 here, what do you do again? You just retreat your knight back to f3. And once again, if they think your pawn on e4 is a free pawn, the best that you can do is to go queen d5, intending to mate on f7 if they do nothing about that. And at the same time, that will also win the knight on e4. But even better is to make them lose their right to castle once again by taking on f7 with check, and after king takes, you go queen d5 check, and on the next move you're going to win their knight on e4. And again, after queen e7, you have knight to c3. You're going to take back with tempo. So that's just how to play against the Felido defense, you guys. Oh, wait a second. If in this position they don't take on e4, and let's say they play bishop g4, once again pinning your knight to the queen, which is the main area of our meat in today's lesson. Well, you just play this move. Look at this. Bishop takes f7. Oh, you seem to be confused. You don't know how we reached this position. Just a second. We started with e4, then e5, knight f3, pawn to d6, and then we played pawn to d4. That's when they took on d4. This is the pawn that you're seeing right now. And what did I say? You take back on d4 with your knight, and you won't see most of your opponents playing pawn to c5 here. We've already covered that though. They'll play knight f6, after which you now go bishop c4, sacrificing another pawn on e4, and well, if they play pawn to c5 this time, attacking your knight, you just retreat your knight back, and this is when you're going to see them play bishop g4, pinning your knight to the queen on d1. Now, I'm sure you are on the same page. This is the position where I recommended to take on f7 with check, and after king takes, you now play knight e5 check. The idea is to take this light squared bishop with tempo. If they take on e5 foolishly, you simply grab that free queen there. So they won't do that. Instead, they'll play something like king g8, after which you just get back your piece. After knight takes g4, by the way, which is the top played move in this position, you don't even take back this knight because it's checkmate after queen d5. So this is just how dangerous this opening can be against a Filido defense. Try it and you will thank me later. So let's move on to the next trap. Now we are having black pieces here. The trap that I'm about to show you may occur in the Italian game. After white plays pawn to e4, we go e5, they play knight f3, we play knight c6, then they go bishop c4. Here I recommend you go bishop c5, the Gyoko piano, and once you see them playing pawn to d3, that's an indication that they may want to play bishop g5 in the near future. Well, play a provoking move, knight to f6. Castle shot is by far the top played move in this position. Then you just go pawn to d6, paving way for your light squared bishop. And it is in this position when you are going to see your opponents playing bishop g5, pinning your knight to your queen on d8. So what do you do to punish this early bishop g5 pin on your knight? Well, I talked about this in detail in the video that has popped up in the card above. Watch that video after you finish watching this one. So pawn to h6 is what I recommend you should play. And then here they'll go bishop h4. You continue with your kingside pawn storm. And after bishop g3, you go h5. You just want to trap their dark squared bishop, e.g. if they foolishly take your pawn on g5. So here what you're going to see them playing is pawn to h4. And because of this dark squared bishop which is poorly placed, we are now free to play bishop g4, pinning this knight, which will later on be supported with knight d4. Okay, so we go bishop g4, wanting to go knight d4. And you're going to see your opponents taking on g5, which is a positional mistake, because now you go h4, sacrificing your knight, okay? Because if bishop takes on h4, you simply take with your rook. The knight can't take because it is pinned to white's queen. So they'll play something like bishop h2 here, after which you just continue with your match, pawn to h3. And this is when they'll play g takes f6, which is the top played move, by the way. After which you now go h takes g2. Attacking their rook. If they take with their king, which is what they do, now you take back the pawn on f6 with your queen, putting more pressure on this knight which is pinned to the queen, and also intending to go knight d4 next. If they play pawn to c3 to stop knight d4, look at this move, bishop takes f3, check, and at the same time threatening to capture the white's queen on d1. If they take back, you have this continuation, rook takes h2 check. And if they take your rook, you will take their free queen and castle long, bringing your other rook. I'm sure this will be about a mate in 6. So they won't do that. They'll play something like king g3 and that will be mate in 1. Alright, so that's just about that. Let's move on to the next exciting trap. Alright. Now with white pieces against the Caro-Kann defense. So this is where we start with e4, they play c6, and then you go d4, then they go d5. What do? Well, you simply go pawn to e5, called the advanced variation. And wait a second, check in both the Lichess database and the Masters database. You will find that pawn to c5 is the second top played move, called the Botvinnik Cow's defense. This is a new trendy line, although it has been there for ages, okay? No one has lost a tempo here. Please Keep that in mind. White made 3 pawn moves, and that's why it is justifiable for black to make 3 pawn moves as well. No one has lost a tempo here. And I have a course on the Caro-Kann defense where I explained this variation very clearly. The link is in the description down below. Go to my website and get that course. It's so beneficial. So here, just simply go pawn to c3, creating this nice looking pawn chain. They will play knight c6, that's the main line, after which you now go knight f3. But you can look into the Lichess database once again. What Caro-Kann players want to do is to develop their light squared bishop, moving it outside of the pawn chain. I mean, before playing pawn to e6, okay? So they'll play bishop g4, pinning your knight to the queen, okay? Now, what most white players do here is simply bishop e2 and castle shot. Hey, I want you to try this. D takes c5. Completely giving up your pawn on e5 so that if black takes, thinking he is putting more pressure on your knight, you now give up your queen by playing knight takes e5. That was a free knight in case you are still lost. If bishop takes d1, which is the top played move by the way, you simply go bishop b5 check. And please note that black cannot block this check with his toes or his stomach. They will have to do it with their queen. After which you take that queen with your bishop, that's check. King d8 only move, then you go knight takes f7 check, forking their king and the rook on h8. If they take on d7, the rook on h8 is already trapped, so you don't have to take that rook. That move can wait. First of all, take this light squared bishop which can escape, and after they play pawn to e5, that's when you take that rook on h8. That's how we play chess, you guys. That's why you're going to see black playing king e6, stopping knight f7. And now your pawn on c5 is surely under attack. What do? Well, you simply hit that like button, which is closer to your thumb. Don't feel lazy. That's how you encourage me to keep on making these wonderful videos, you guys. And if at all you're not a subscriber yet, what are you waiting for? I mean, it doesn't hurt to subscribe. You just do it in 4 seconds during this break which is coming, and you won't miss any of my future uploads. I mean, just do that during this short break, and don't forget to visit www.casperchess.com and check out my courses that are going at very affordable prices at the moment. Still on promotion, and the link is in the description down below. So let's go. Okay, so after king e6, stopping our knight f7 escape, well, we defend this pawn here with bishop e3. By the way, at West we always have knight g6, which would double up black's pawns along the g file. And if knight f6, for example, intending to go bishop e7 next and win our knight, well, we just continue developing rook e1, bishop e7, bishop d4, wanting to capture this pawn. If they play pawn to e4, we develop our knight. And if they take, we play pawn to f3. I mean, just playing where the tension is. Next, we're going to play pawn to b4. This will be a very great game for us. And the best way to continue this is to get rid of one minor piece. This is called the reduction theory. If you are a piece up, start trading pieces but not pawns. We keep pawns for the end game. That's one premium advice, you guys. Let's move on to the next trap. Okay, trap number 4 with the old Benoni. So white begins with d4 and then we go pawn to c5. Now I have a course on my website which is in the description down below where we play pawn to e5 immediately. After white plays pawn to d5, then we later on play d6 and knight f6. That's called the check Benoni, by the way. One of the solid defenses against pawn to d4. So if your opponent knows that you are a Benoni defense player who knows exactly what he is doing, they'll try to play some anti-Benoni opening with the move pawn to c4, by the way, which is the second top played move in the Lichess database. So here I just recommend you just take that pawn on d4 with your c pawn, and after queen takes d4, what do? Well, you simply go knight c6, attacking the queen on d4. And again, the top played move here, listen, is queen d1, after which you play pawn to e5, okay? I'm only showing you the top played moves, you guys. They will play knight c3, that's the top played move again, after which you go knight f6. Check the Lichess database again, knight f3 is the top played move. Then you go bishop c5. The idea is very simple here. castle short, play pawn to d6 to pave way for your light squared bishop, and then later on play pawn to h6. I mean, anything is playable here. But what does white want to do here? They want to play pawn to e3. But playing pawn to e3 before developing their dark squared bishop will make this bishop to become a bad piece, and so they like doing it this way. Bishop g5 again, pinning your knight to the queen, and only then you will see them playing pawn to e3 now that their dark squared bishop is out of the pawn chain. Okay, so wait a second. I know queen b6 is also playable, targeting the f2 pawn and the b2 pawn. But in all honesty, you guys, this would just lead to a boring eco game. There is nothing, absolutely nothing that black is doing. This is just a dead draw. You can check the Lichess database or Stockfish. It will just evaluate this position as 0-0-0-0. Yes, the white king is playing on the center, but there is absolutely nothing that you can do to checkmate white anytime soon. So this is just a dead draw. Check that on Stockfish, which is why I recommend that you try to create an imbalance. After bishop g5, pinning your knight to the queen, instead of going queen b6, simply play this tricky move pawn to e4, attacking the f3 knight. And again, knight takes e4 by white is by far the top played move, which we want to see. After knight takes e4, it is time for you to punish this useless bishop, which is pinning your knight. And how do you do that? By simply taking the e4 knight. And I was surprised to see that bishop takes d8 here is by far the top played move, after which you simply mate white in one. We are not using juju, you guys, or whatever. Anyways, that was just a little joke, a bad joke. Good. Against the perk defense, here we start with pawn to e4, and then black responds with d6. There's this sneaky move, you guys. Let me tell you something. The perk's opening moves are well known. d6 followed by knight f6, pawn to g6. They fianchetto their bishop, they castle short. I mean, this is what they play. So I want you to try this move, pawn to e5. And I can guarantee you guys that in most cases, you are going to see knight to f6 here. Black normally pre-moves knight to f6, and that's how you will win this knight, okay? So try this and you will see for yourselves. This works like magic. In fact, in the Lichess database, it's like the second most played move. Anyways, the move here is d takes e5. After they do this, you simply develop your light squared bishop to c4, and again, knight f6 is the top played move. What do you do? Well, you go knight f3. Once again, knight c6 is by far the top played move. What do you do? This is when you can go queen e2, as if you want to capture this pawn on e5. I mean, it's under attack with two of your, pieces. Once again, bishop g4 is by far the top played move. According to the Lichess database, they'll play this move to pin your knight to the queen. How do you punish this useless bishop? Well, by simply going knight takes e5, completely sacrificing your queen. The idea is that if they foolishly take your queen, now there is checkmate in one. I'm sure you can already see the idea. So you won't see them doing that. Instead of taking your queen, they'll choose to take your knight on e5, after which you just simply take back that knight, and after something like pawn to e6. By the way, Stockfish in this position says the game is very much an equal game, so if your trap doesn't work, don't worry, you are not worse in this position. Pawn to e6 is a positional mistake already, as you have queen b5 check, so you can see the whole idea behind this trap. But let's go back a little bit, maybe somewhere around here, where black plays knight to f6, after which you go knight f3, that's what I said, and instead of black playing knight c6 to defend their e5 pawn, you may see them playing bishop g4. What do you do? This is all for today, you guys. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If at all you did, please don't hesitate to give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing